Welcome to the Responsible Marketing Podcast, conversations about marketing, sustainability, and how we can all help in becoming more responsible organisations. I'm Jo, a marketing strategist and consultant with a career spanning corporate, small medium business and self-employment, incorporating marketing and commercial in various guises, and now flying the flag for a more sustainable and kinder future. In this episode, I'm joined by John Atkinson, now retired but famous in the northeast of England for business and funding advice. We talk about how recent events aren't too dissimilar from years gone by and the outlook for the northeast business community. Let's dive straight in. Hi and welcome to today's podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by John Atkinson, very famous in the northeast for business support. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Jo, for giving me this new opportunity.
Okay.
Historically, I've been great behind a microphone, never very good in front of a camera.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens then. I think I'll keep everyone watching.
We're on an interesting journey today.
Okay, excellent. So, John, obviously I've known you for a few years, being involved in business up here in the northeast. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do at the moment and then obviously a bit of background to what you've done in the past?
Okay, well, I can say I am retired from the day job. That doesn't mean to say I'm not occupied with various things, but I am retired from what became a career in business support, which strangely started, my career started in agriculture.
Oh, interesting.
So I was born and brought up in Yorkshire, and
Excellent.
I decided that I had had enough of wearing a tie to go to school and sitting in an office, so I wanted an outdoor life. And careers advice at the time was somewhat limited, but I decided agriculture was the place to be, great opportunities, and I did 3 years at agricultural college, started working in the industry. That was fine. Then I took an opportunity to work for a firm of agricultural merchants.
Okay.
So I went through a management development course or program with them, which took me to credit control, managing a pet shop, and then into a feed mill. Decided really selling wasn't one of my strong points.
Okay.
So an opportunity presented itself to work for Leeds University Farms as the farm recorder, and then I became the dairy manager. So for about 7 years I milked cows for a living, 6 days a week effectively.
With your hands or with machines
Machines.
by then? Machines by then,
machines.
thankfully. Okay,
yes,
good.
Yes. The only time I had to milk a cow by hand was when I'd run out of milk in the house and we needed a coffee before I started work in an afternoon. So
straight from the
literally
cow.
From the cow to the cup.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Then after finding that my back didn't quite like the physical endurance of agriculture, I got a job with the Agricultural Training Board.
Okay.
Because I was a big advocate of the whole idea of learning and development as somebody who wasn't from a pure farming background. I lived in the countryside but didn't come from a farming family. So I was a strong advocate for the value of learning, and the training board at the time was the organisation that delivered practical skill training to farmers, and it was delivered by practitioners in the industry, not lecturers from colleges.
Okay.
So you got industry insights into how to use equipment and how to, things like shearing sheep, using chainsaws, pesticides, sprays, all that sort of stuff. Agricultural Training Board then suffered, as always. Government decided we want to change what we do. Agricultural Training Board went, I was made redundant, and I joined the Training and Enterprise Council as a business development advisor.
Okay.
Not quite sure at the time why I thought I had this skill. But anyway, what I very quickly realised was that in talking to businesses, they had very little awareness of what support may be available to help them to take their business forward.
So funding and
there was funding. It was giving them access to learning opportunities, workshops as well. So I found very quickly that you could add value to all these businesses by just having conversation with them in many cases.
Yeah.
And as I've said so many times to people when I've sat with them talking about what their issues were, and you've gone, well, have you thought about this? And they've sort of looked at you and gone, wow, how did you come up with that idea? And I've always said, well, look, it's not my problem.
Yes.
You're the one with the problem. You see it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Absolutely.
And I come along with a completely blank piece of paper and say, well, if I saw this problem, this is how I interpret it.
Yeah.
And that can just lift the fog and give them an opportunity to think differently about an issue.
It's almost like wood for the trees, isn't it? You can't see it out because it's there all the time.
Yeah.
So third party eye, absolutely.
Yeah. So Training and Enterprise Council morphs into, for me, Business Link.
Okay.
And Business Link County Durham, then the Regional Business Link.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole of my time from joining the tech, I have always been the rural man.
Okay, the rural man.
Yeah.
It's quite a nice accolade, isn't it?
Well, my first day at the tech, my manager sat me down and said, well, welcome, John, we're delighted to have you join us. One of the things I want you to do, because within the organisation we have nobody that understands the rural areas, and you spent your time in the rural areas, therefore you are the rural man. I was never given that title until very late in my time with the Regional Business Link, but I was always, if a farmer phoned, I went to see them. Yeah. If it was about diversification, I went to see them. And when foot and mouth hit in 2001, I said to our chief executive at the time, look, if this takes off, this is not purely an agricultural crisis. This is a crisis for the whole of the rural economy. Absolutely. And it was only then that people started to realise the interdependency of the whole rural community with the farming community. Right. If farmers are wealthy, they spend money, and they spend money predominantly locally. Yeah. And it was quite interesting as we deployed a support programme from the Regional Development Agency that we found we were supporting a very diverse range of businesses to help them because their primary markets had either closed entirely or had reduced their requirements. One in particular was a business that manufactured and repaired canoes and buoyancy aids. Wow. Because Tony Blair closed down the countryside. So all the outward bound activities that were taking place, all the school trips that went out to do water activities stopped. So nothing got damaged, nothing got worn out. Yeah. So these guys all of a sudden are looking at an empty order book.
Interesting.
Really quite...
Has to be very agile.
Yes. People
and we thought COVID was the time to be agile, but clearly it's been here before. Well, we've been here before, haven't we? So
it has, and I suspect, having sat through 30 years of business support in what various guises, that the same messages are still here. You've got to think differently, and these crises do give you an opportunity to think completely differently, because who would have thought when COVID hit that we all now see Zoom as a way of doing business?
Absolutely.
Electronic signatures on contracts. Yeah. I mean, it's transformed
it's
my
incredible.
work.
And the tech's moving faster and faster, that's the thing as well. You know, I've been doing a lot recently about AI and trying to learn how I can incorporate AI, and even that's like, it's mind-blowing how quickly that's moving. So, you know, what you must have seen with those kind of developments with the rural agencies and everything else, that actually must have been snail's pace almost compared to what we do now. Yeah. But so important to make those changes, like you say, and have those... I hate the word pivot, but, you know, those pivots.
One has to think about it, because those moments significantly change the way people look at working. With farmers, I think there was an element of, when a farmer lost the whole of his livestock, I would say to them when I spoke to them, and I just say I was only on the periphery of all of this, but I said, you will never get a better opportunity to think, do I want to do exactly the same as I have been doing? This is a blank canvas. one can start again doing something slightly different. Whereas if you have a flock of sheep, a herd of cattle, then you've got a long-term process taking place. And yes, you can change, but it will take significant amount of time. And that time is not in weeks or months, that is in years.
Yeah.
You lose all your livestock, you have to restock. What do you want to do? And now's the time to do it differently. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a bit of a, I don't know, it's almost like a big stick coming through, isn't it? But yeah, hopefully, well, as we know, those people who were open-minded and could approach it like that way clearly took the advantage then, didn't they? Which is great. Okay. Yeah. So you've obviously had, in your even early career, you've had this kind of value ingrained in you, I think, about helping business and supporting business. So has that always been there, do you think? Or do you think it's as you've kind of been through this process, this career progression, that you've found that?
No, I think it's something that's deep-seated. Family values that say, if somebody wants help, you help them. It's not what can I get out of this. It's very much a case of, yes, it costs me nothing to share my knowledge or even just act as a sounding board. And I think for many of the small businesses that I've met over my years, providing them with that impartial, non-judgmental sounding board that they can talk about whatever they want rather than risk sitting with either family or co-workers who are already sort of aligned to their direction of travel and their thinking. I can offer that little bit of, how do I say, revolutionary thinking, but a completely different perspective. And I think that in itself can help. Yeah, it's like looking through slightly different spectacles, really, isn't it, at a business? And I find the same. So a lot of businesses I go into, we have conversations about something that actually probably isn't related to marketing to start with, because there's something else. Or it might start with marketing, and then we actually discover there's some other things that we need to sort out first, or have a discussion around before you can even think about actually what marketing is doing for them. So yeah, I find that really interesting. And I love the fact that you're still playing that role in some ways, even though you say you're retired. The phone keeps the phone. The phone still rings, and for a good 3 or 4 years after Business Link reformatted and I moved on in my working career, people still phoned me and said, because I kept my mobile phone number, which I think is a critical thing, because they built up a tremendous amount of contacts. Absolutely. And they have that number across the region. I would say just County Durham, the region. And they phoned up, John, are you still with Business Link? I say, well, no, but what do you want? What can I do to help? And where can I signpost? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because as I say, the business support landscape is constantly evolving and changing. And I think one of the biggest changes that everybody's having to come to grips with recently has been the final demise of European funding and the launch of UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which may have a very short lifespan given current change in government and their thinking. Yeah, and also the delay between those two things happening as well. There was a huge delay between the European funding kind of closing and then the decision on how this new funding process was going to happen and how it was allocated, plus obviously all the confusion in the Northeast with all the LEPs and all that kind of, anyway, we're not going to get political, but well, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It makes it really challenging. It was quite funny at the time. I was asked by 1 or 2 business groups to go along and speak about the changes to funding and what would happen. And this was at a point I think I had just about retired, but I said, yes, I'm quite happy to come along and talk about it. And I presented a story which I said, look, we have over the years seen various major changes in programs and structures. The fundamental principles about how to apply for a grant remain the same. Yeah. I always go through those. Okay. But I am confident that the deadlines and timelines that the government or the department give will slip. Okay. So there will be a gap between European funding ending and new funding starting. As the new funding will have to be seen to be different because it's not European funding, then everybody who is involved in the administration of that programme is going to have to learn a new set of principles.
Yeah, okay.
The rules have changed.
Yeah.
Therefore, the time it will take to process those early grants will take longer than you're currently being used to.
Yeah.
And the bigger the value of project, the longer that will take.
Yeah.
So be prepared for that. And I didn't realise how prophetic I would be in that.
Yeah, so maybe you should have, like, I don't know, a little box to stand on a Sunday morning. So I don't know.
Well, I get it from both sides. Having worked in delivering grant support to businesses for so long,
yes,
I see the challenges that businesses can create for the grant bodies in failing to send information in a timely manner, completely changing providers partway through a project and then wonder why they're not going to get funded.
Or starting before you've been accepted. I mean, that's always a thing, isn't it? Where I know that any funders that I've been involved in, whether it's my own projects or my client projects, it's like, please do not start anything until we've said, yes, you've got the funding, because otherwise it's void, isn't it?
Very true. And interestingly, only last week, I'm now chairman of the civilian committee for the Air Cadets in Newton Aycliffe.
Okay.
And we submitted an application to the Area Action Partnership, and we were unsuccessful on the basis that they'd got £110,000 worth of grant to distribute. They had £200,000+ worth of applications.
Okay.
However, last week I got a call from them to say, whilst we had to decline your original application, we have found that one of our successful applicants has already started their project, and such, they have lost the right to that money.
Right.
Would you like to step in? So it is one of those critical messages that I always give to people. Whatever you do, until you've got a signed document that says we will give you this money, do nothing.
Yeah, sit on it. Just sit on it really tight.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
So what do you think helps kind of small and medium businesses? I mean, that's the area I want to concentrate on, because obviously that's what I'm involved in, as you know. So what do you think helps them achieve kind of like sustainable growth and longevity? Obviously, we've talked about kind of like funding opportunities and things. What else do you think helps businesses kind of create that?
What small businesses need to do is understand their customers. Why are they buying from you? What is your USP in their mind? Because asking the question of the customers, was everything okay? What do you like about this? They can also give you pointers as to what you could do in terms of evolving that offer. If it's a product, do we want it in red or blue? Could you do it in green?
Yeah.
If you do this type of product, could it be scaled? Can we do something different with it? It's asking those questions, and it's not about lacking confidence in the quality of your work. It's genuinely wanting to say to them, right, we've delivered this. Are you happy with it? Are you satisfied with it? If we could have done anything better, what would it have been? What would it look like?
Yeah.
And don't be afraid of asking those questions.
Yeah, that's absolute music to my ears, which you probably knew. It wasn't, planned, but yeah, you knew that was going to work for me.
I didn't get the memo.
You never got the memo. Yeah. But no, I agree. I have conversations with businesses again about don't wait till it's perfect. Just get it launched. Yep. Have an iterative kind of process, opposed to like, that's it, that's the final thing, we're done, we're dusted. There's always room for improvement. That's how products evolve. That's how we get second or third versions of whatever we've got. Even like phone updates and all that kind of thing. It's round us now, isn't it? So it goes back to that kind of agility thing, I guess, a little bit. And being a bit kind of like wide-eyed about what else could happen. But being...
Now, having said that, I do remember a case where I'd been doing a benchmarking exercise with a business, and one of the areas that we looked at was in terms of how close you are to your customer. And one of the questions was, do you ask for feedback? And this gentleman said, absolutely not. And he was dealing with some of the ethnic community, and he said, culturally, their view is if you start asking am I delivering what you want? There is a suspicion that you are not necessarily delivering.
Oh, okay.
So
it's definitely back to know your customer then,
you
actually.
have to know your customer.
That's
and
really
therefore I was quite taken aback, because I thought, the standard doctrine is ask your customer for feedback.
Yeah.
It's vital, it's important.
Yeah.
I suspect in that instance, the only way you start to worry is if they stop ordering.
Yeah.
Then you've got the right.
And then
to go
how do you
back
find out why? Yeah,
Yes,
I guess
you
you take your
you've got to
right
ask the
reply
question then.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super interesting. So when we're talking about, obviously, like asking your market, finding a USP and stuff, that's all marketing opportunity then, I guess, as well. So do you think then that small and medium businesses use those opportunities that are presented to them in those ways to their full advantage? Or do you think we're a bit reticent about maybe shouting about kind of like what are the great stuff we do, the benefits of our services and products, and what we've changed to really make ourselves better as a proposition?
Without a doubt. There is a reluctance in many cases, and not only in terms of a bit of self-publicity. I mean, I've seen it through the work I've done with the Teesdale Business Awards, that you find there are so many really good businesses across Teesdale that we've worked with, and you say to people, well, why don't you enter? And they go, well, we're not doing anything special. I said, well, really, have you not looked at what you're doing? This is the bit that I struggle with. You go, wow, we've had winners of awards who have been supplying to countries across the globe. Yeah. And you go, from Teesdale. Little
absolutely.
Backwater, and yet they're doing tremendous work, and they don't necessarily feel they can stand up and shout it to the rafters. Yeah. So I do encourage them to think about this. If you're getting an opportunity to, as I'm doing here, we're doing this vodcast, but I used to say to people when I was producing the business program for Radio Teesdale, if you're coming on the program, then tweet about it, put it on LinkedIn before you come on, talk about it after you've been here, send them the link to the program. And again, same with the awards. You've been nominated, you've been shortlisted, you're at the awards, you've won, hurrah, see the Northern Echo, look at where our message has gone, and it all helps build that credibility. And through multiple channels. Yeah,
definitely. And we ought to give a shout out to Teesdale Business Awards, because they are immense.
I think the other interesting thing about the Business Awards has been it's proved to be a launch pad for businesses to go on and apply for other awards. Definitely. It's given them the confidence to say, actually, we are doing a good job. We have a good story to tell, and let's just see where that takes us. And we've had businesses who, one in particular, who won a new business award, and then they went on to regional and national recognition. And it was, and they will openly admit, it was the launch pad for them. It gave them the confidence to say, yes, let's go out there. Yeah. Okay, you've got to be in it to win it. And we all know there are a lot of good companies out there that just will not go near an award event. Yeah. But even and again, a note of caution, not all awards events are as open and non-commercial.
Yes, impartial. Impartial is a good word, isn't it? Yeah.
So some of them, for a fee, you will get nominated and shortlisted for a bizarre award of some description. You've got to be careful where you pick and choose.
I mean, I do love the fact that certainly well in Teesdale, but also the North East, I think we're quite humble as businesses. We don't like to shout about stuff, and I think that's almost, we fall foul of that because, as you know, I'm a massive promoter for marketing opportunities. So, every option like that, whether it's even just some feedback from a customer or whether it's an award or even, like you say, being nominated, shortlisted, any of that is amazing PR for a small business. So it's great.
The other interesting experience I had with getting people to talk about success was, again, during the foot and mouth outbreak and to a certain extent during COVID, that we would come across businesses that had either managed to pivot or found a niche opportunity and were doing remarkably well. And you say, this is a great story we could share. and they go, no, I really don't want to be seen to be profiteering on the back of a lot of really difficult times for many people. And there was always that, there are some really strong learning points that you can share from this story. But they were extremely reluctant to put their head above the parapet and say, look, you might be having to shed staff, go on part-time working, whatever, but we happen to be in the sweet spot that sees this product or service being in even higher demand. So we've grabbed hold of that opportunity.
There's a company I know who they just started out just before the pandemic with glamping pods in the UK. And of course, because we weren't allowed anywhere, and their business went through the roof. And they had the same kind of dilemma. It's like, they don't want to be almost standing up saying, we've got loads of business. But equally, it was really important for them to share the amazing experience they could offer people. So yes, you can't go abroad. But actually, if you stay within the UK, not only are you then almost sharing the value within the local businesses surrounding our area, but also, you're keeping the UK going and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely always, I think, a positive. And I think that's the same with like sustainability, for example. That I'm a massive champion for businesses becoming more responsible and sustainable, whatever that means to a business. And I think there's a lot of businesses who have the similar kind of attitude or fear of speaking about what they're doing or the good they're doing already or they're planning to do without fear of being like shot down or people nitpicking and thinking, actually, well, you said you do this, but actually, blah, blah, blah. It's a really fine line again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think some of the larger businesses have been accused in many cases of greenwashing. And I think part of the issue is that a lot of people still don't quite understand the scope of what we talk about under sustainability, and people are creating a lot of confusion. One of the interesting things I did when you said we were going to have this the vodcast, I went and had a look at the awards and recognitions that one could get as a business in sustainability. I came up with 13 different badges, labels, call it what you will, and how the average man in the street or the business that is saying, right, okay, I want to do my bit, therefore I need, I will work with businesses that have some sort of recognition. Do I know what each or any of these different standards actually mean?
No, exactly.
And are they meaningful? Do they truly reflect what I want to achieve? It's not easy, and I think again, I'm old enough and long in the tooth enough to remember when quality standards started to come out, BS 5750, and around all of that, larger companies were starting to say, right, we've got it, all our suppliers will need it. And I remember having a fascinating conversation one day with a business that had this diktat from one of their bigger customers saying, we require you to do this. And he went back to them and said, right, I've read the standard. Nowhere in that does it say that you can only deal with businesses that have BS 5750. How long have I been supplying you? And they said, about 5 years. I said, right, in that time, do I deliver what you order? Yes. On time? Yes. Right quality? Yes. At the price we agreed? Yes. What's the issue?
Where's your issue? Yeah, absolutely.
So I think people, larger companies take often a lazy way out and say, well, if we are sustainable, whatever that means.
Yes, whatever context it is in.
Then you will be too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right, the sustainability, and I had this discussion with How Media actually last week on their podcast as well. The breadth of subject matter for the word sustainability is huge. And you're right, you can get all sorts of accolades and badges and stuff like that. But actually, from my point of view, it's about what efforts are you making to become more responsible. So irrelevant when you've got badges to prove it or not, you don't need to. As long as you've got the proof within the business and you're communicating that, in my opinion. So all businesses are you listening, should be communicating those advantages that they have. So whether their progress in or the policies they have, whether it's the way they work the business, whether it's who they do deal with. You're right. I don't think there is a way, unless the statute comes in, which there may well be at some point, who knows, to say you have to work with businesses of this certain accreditation. I think that's a shame, because I think there's lots of businesses, certainly again back to small, medium businesses, who are doing lots of great work that can't afford or don't want to invest in massive ISO accreditations, for example.
Or even don't necessarily see it under the banner of sustainability. All they're seeing it is as good business practice.
Yeah.
And one has to say, sustainability in layman's terms could well mean getting more for less out of your system's processes, reducing waste, finding renewable opportunities. It's a very broad church, but fundamentally, how can adopting these principles help your business thrive and grow?
And do you think then, based on that kind of discussion, do you think becoming a more responsible business, so being aware of those processes and making even small incremental changes in a more positive way, do you think that's what businesses should be moving towards? Do you think there's an advantage for them doing that?
Without a doubt. The general move is towards sustainability. I mean, if we go and look at the motor industry, the direction of travel is going this way. Therefore, whether we ultimately like it or not, that's where we will end up. With sustainability, it is sensible. We know globally resources are stretched. We need, 2.5 times the world's output of resources to sustain it.
Something along, it changes all the time, but something like that. It's
ridiculous
scary.
Numbers. So therefore, we've got to say, there isn't this finite, bottomless pit of resources.
Exactly,
We've got to be clever about this. And as we touched on earlier, for me as a business advisor at the time, it was a real opportunity to radically change the way in which we worked. So historically, I would have processed an application from a client, sent off the contract information to our office, which was in Ashington. They would process it all, print off copies, 2 copies of contracts and all the other documentation, stick it in an envelope, post it to me. I would go out and see the client, get them to sign on the dotted line, and I'd leave 1 copy with them. I would take the other one back, stick it in an envelope, post it back to the office. And then the European Union decided that we could actually get away with electronic signatures. And I would send the paperwork to the office. The office would process it, email it back to me. I would sign it. It went back to the office. They would send it out to the client signed it. Bang. 30 minutes.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And no car journeys, no 2 hours of my time to go and see a client and process all of this. That's, radical change. All of a sudden I release so much more time. But we have to think differently. And we have to accept that and you'll have heard it so many times, Joe. You go and talk to a client and say, well, actually, why are you doing it that way? And there's that pause, and they go, well, we've always done it that way. And you don't even need to say anything. You just look at them and go, and that's,
there's a few times I've been through that. It's true. Or we should be doing it. Well, maybe not like that.
Or
totally.
as we said earlier, you don't see the wood for the trees.
No, exactly right. So do you think, what's the business, I know you're still, even though you're retired, but I still know you've got your finger on the pulse. So what's the business climate in the Northeast for small business, small and medium enterprise right now? Is it very positive? I'm getting quite a positive vibe, but it's really, lots of change coming.
Really quite interesting, because as you know, I still produce business news content for a couple of radio stations. The general mood music from all the surveys that are conducted are, in general, the business community is quite positive, and remarkably, the Northeast is one of the most positive regions in the country.
Amazing.
And having worked across the region for quite a long time, you think, how is that possible? But there is genuine optimism that business opportunities are likely to get better.
Yes.
They are still conscious of the challenges of cost of living, and businesses are reluctant to make big capital purchase decisions on the basis of, we know we need to do it,
unsure.
but let's wait. But in general, the mood music is positive.
Yeah.
Not always reflected in overall performance figures, but there is a general sense that people are a little more confident than they were.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with that. The networking that I do, there's certainly still really tough times. I think so many businesses are finding it across all industries as well. I mean, I know a lot of people talk about hospitality, and hospitality is particularly tough, but I think across a lot of industries, there's some real struggles really to get the business motivation and movement there again. But people are looking, and I think maybe what's happened recently in government and things like that has changed. Maybe it's a fresh start. Hopefully, it's a deep breath and let's crack on. Come on, let's make this work.
I think it is, and I think there needs to be that degree of confidence for people to say, right, yes, that is the opportunity. I mean, domestically, my wife and I had decided that we needed to replace our kitchen. So we spoke to a kitchen designer, and she came along. We did all the work and everything. And as I would, as a former business advisor, you said, so how's business? She said, really, I'm doing a lot of prep work. I've got a lot of clients who are at the point of, we need to sign.
Almost ready to sign.
Yeah, we need to sign. And there is then a sort of step back from that, which was great for us because we decided, yes, we needed to do it. We wanted to do it. She came with the design, the quote, right, when can he start?
Brilliant.
So for us, we got ahead of the game.
Absolutely,
because you know what's going to happen is that she'll find, 3 or 4 will all go, yes, we'll have it now. And she goes, I haven't got the capacity to deliver.
3 months delay or whatever to get started. Yeah, totally.
So domestically, and I've heard that from numerous tradesmen, that there is a lot of conversations, but that conversion is taking longer than one would like.
Yeah, but at least people are now kind of venturing into that and inquiring, and I think, the more marketing you can do, the more you're on the people's radars.
It is a case of using whatever channels you can to get that message out there.
And do you think the North East, we've touched on sustainability a little bit, do you think that the North East are open-minded to embracing sustainability in whatever form so whether it's the ESG pillars or whether it's being more responsible, whether it's hopefully not the tick boxing exercise, but the paperwork side, all that kind of stuff. Do you think they're open-minded to that now and ready to embrace it, or is it going to take some time?
It will still take time. Maybe
for all the smaller businesses. Understanding what it's about.
I think it's a constant challenge to ensure that there is a consistent message going out there about what does this actually mean.
Yeah.
Because the people who are often championing it are the ones who are wanting to make money out of it. And they don't always give you the full picture. They will tell you what they want you to know, and hopefully that's enough to make you decide that they are worth engaging with, rather than let's do an education piece that talks about, in its broadest sense, what does this mean? How could you take baby steps to get started, and then build? And if ultimately you feel you want to go for an accreditation, then how do we select which would be the most appropriate?
Yeah. I mean, I do find there's a lot of businesses, I think I'm going back in full circle actually, but a lot of businesses who don't realise they're doing things already, and that you can always backdate. So even if you started with, I don't know, maybe you changed some production processes maybe 2 years ago, you could still count that as your benchmark. So as long as you've got your benchmark and you kind of have a little plan and you can measure and prove and evidence that you're actually making progress, then you're all good, aren't you? But it is, I agree, it's about education and understanding that it doesn't have to be costly either. So people, there are always going to be people that come in and say, yes, if you give me X amount of thousands of pounds, then I'll sort this out for you. But actually there's so much you can do without actually outlaying pretty much any money at all, to be fair. So
I mean, to a certain extent, I think the way energy prices rocketed drove businesses quite clearly to say, if we're paying this amount for energy, what
can we do?
Well, which lights can we switch off?
Yeah.
Can we turn the heating down?
It? Yeah.
You know, production-wise, can we work smarter?
Yeah.
You know, that is driven very much by the economies that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, once you start doing that, then you realise actually there are a lot more things we can do.
Definitely.
But it's still back to actually taking that step back from running
like
a hamster.
Say that. Yeah.
And going, actually, well, if we're doing that, let's just think more broadly about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and where are those opportunities to actually make, you know, effectively make savings.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely right, making efficiency and savings.
Because
totally.
all those savings impact directly on the bottom line.
Yeah, totally.
And if you're in business to make profit.
Yeah.
Cut through all the flannel.
Exactly right.
Ultimately, that's what it is. So if you can cut cost and still deliver the same product, same quality service, then all you're doing is adding to your profit.
Yeah, and it's important that businesses understand that this whole sustainability package, if you like, is not there to say, you should be spending money and not making profit. That's not what it's about, because you still need your profit to make sure the company stays as it is, because you're still employing people and paying people and doing all of that, you know, so that's a really important element as well.
Absolutely. And of course, with the profit from the business, you want to be reinvesting.
Totally, yeah.
And that's where we've got to encourage people to think longer term. You know, it's about, if you can make more profit, you can invest in bigger machinery, more efficient energy efficiency machinery, and such like.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this has been really great. Thank you. I've just realised I've been quite well coordinated today as well. Look, pink and pink. Again, no
didn't
memo.
get a memo.
No
didn't
memo.
get a memo.
Okay, John. So one last question for me. If there was one tip you could offer small, medium businesses, not just in the Northeast, because this will go out hopefully to across the world, but you know, one tip that you could offer to, for them to progress positively in the current climate. Is there anything that you could share?
Don't be afraid to talk to experts, advisors, get ideas and conversations with people externally from your business. You know, business advisors see a lot of different types of businesses, and I regularly was asked by people, how can you advise me as a business? Because I'm from an agricultural background. You know, you are now ostensibly pseudo civil servant delivering grants.
Could be seen like that, yeah.
You know, and I said, well, fundamentally, any business delivers a product or service, and the key to a successful business is know your product, know your customer, understand the costs involved in your business, manage those effectively, and look for new opportunities. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and the key is your turnover should ensure that there is a margin over cost. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay, big business, much more sophisticated, but fundamentally you're still delivering a product or service to a market. You need to know where that market is, how to get to them, how to talk to them, what resonates with them.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
I mean, it's not groundbreaking new stuff, is it? But
it is.
It's stuff that we forget, I think, sometimes, isn't it? That we have to do.
It is, and sometimes you feel how can we repackage this message in a way that it seems fresher, and gives people a chance to think. Actually, let's cut away all of this surplus, ideas,
fat.
and it's just,
well,
let's get to the
stuff.
Let's get to the core of it.
Yeah, definitely. All about nitty-gritty. Brilliant. Well, John, while you're here, you better just explain to our viewers and listeners about your radio station, because you're still on the radio.
I am still radioing, yes. I started my radio career here in Barnard Castle with Radio Teesdale. At that time, I produced a business programme once a fortnight for an hour live in the studio. Subsequently, since the demise of Radio Teesdale, I'm now broadcasting a business bulletin 5 days a week on Bishop FM and Aycliffe Radio. Yes, 5 days a week.
What time does it go out?
It's 8:30, between 8:30 and 9, and 5:30-ish on Bishop FM.
Okay.
Aycliffe Radio, last time I heard it was about 10:30 in the morning, but
Okay.
it's 2 minutes 20 of local, regional business news. Good. Must admit, I try to focus on the positive. I believe there's enough people talking about doom and gloom. I need to say, look, it might be bad out there, but there are some good news stories. There's some positive stuff happening. There's some real opportunities out there, and you need to embrace these.
Yeah,
so
totally.
that's my mission on the radio.
And what a fabulous one it is.
We try.
Thank you so much for your time, John.
My pleasure.
It's been great to have you here, and I will see you all again soon. You've been listening to the Responsible Marketing Podcast. You can contact me by email at joe@jolonconsulting.com or find me on LinkedIn. All recordings of the podcast can be found on YouTube, as well as where you usually get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed listening, please hit subscribe, which helps the podcast be found by more people. And of course, feel free to share it on your socials. Until next time, thanks for listening.